sometimes and I can't seem to find a light between the walls I built for myself right in my mind. And then you came over and you showed me love that I never had seen before. And now when I got you, it's all gonna be alright. Thinking about all the things we did tonight. What a time to be alive. Just you and I. Just you and I. Only you.
I have here my pattern paper in front of me. Is folded into two. The first thing I'm going to be doing, I'm going to start by ruling out an horizontal line, serve as our starting point, and also is going to be the shoulder line. This fold is going to be my center front, and this is going to be my shoulder line. So I'm going to continue by putting in the rest of the horizontal measurement. I'm going to start by taking my shoulder to my chest line. Shoulder to chest line I'm working with is 9. Whatever you get when you take your armhole circumference and you divide it by 2, whatever you get is what you are going to measure here. So in my case, I'm working with 9 inches, which is the standard for an average woman. So the next horizontal line I'm going to measure is from my shoulder line to my waistline. Okay, so I'll take from my shoulder line to the waistline, and I am using 18 inches, and I'll connect the 2 points to form a straight horizontal line, and that is my waistline. I'll take the same 18 here so I can get a straight horizontal line. Alright, so the last horizontal line I'm going to be taking for now is going to be the top length. Okay, and for this you can determine yourself how long you want it to be. It's a crop top, you can just decide to let it stop at your waistline, but for me I want to go just half inch below the waistline. You guys will say half inch, like why do I even have to put half inch, like it's too small, but trust me, it makes a lot of difference. So I'm stepping down just half inch from my waistline. You can as well stop yours at exactly your waistline, or you can go like 1 inch 2 inches below your waistline, or you can even come up 1 inch 2 inches above your waistline. It all depends on what you want. Okay, so I'll connect this, and this is my top length. All right, so that's all the horizontal measurement for now, and I am going to start by drafting out my dart. So, and in order to do the dart, I need my nipple to nipple measurement. So the nipple to nipple measurement I'm working with is 8 inches. So the nipples are 8 inches apart. We are going to be dividing that 8 inches into 2. Whatever yours is, you divide it into 2. Mine is 4. When I divide 8 by 2, it gives me 4. So I will mark 4 from my center front. And I'm also going to mark that 4 along my chest line, just so I can connect the 2 points to get a straight line. So then I have to determine my dart intake. For the dart intake, I'm going to be using 2 inches altogether. Okay, you can use 3 inches maximum if the person you are sewing for has a big bust, but if it's like a medium bust size, you can use 2, like I'm going to be doing. If it's small, you can use 1.5. so I will use 2, and that 2 I'm going to divide it, I'm going to split it into 2, one on this side of this line and one on the other side of this vertical line. So I'll take 1 inch on this side, and also 1 inch goes to this side as well. So I have 2 points. So if you want, you can rule out another horizontal line to be your bust point line. That's the fullest part of your bust, the line that goes around your nipple. You can as well rule it out here, but I just really don't need it. That's why I'm not ruling out that line for now. Okay, so I'll come to this point right here, and I'm going to be stepping down by 1 inch. Okay, and that's going to be the top of my dart. So I'm going to connect this point now to this point, and from here to this point as well. Okay, so I will connect this way and this way. Next thing to do is to draft in my horizontal measurement, and I'm starting from my bust circumference. So my bust circumference is 36 inches. So I have to divide 36 inches by 4, and it's going to give me 9. So measure around your bust, whatever you get, divide it by 4, and you are going to be marking it down here. So mine is 9. So the waist measurement I'm working with is 30 inches. 30 inches divided by 4 gives me 7.5. I'm going to be adding the 2 inches for my dart, and that is then going to give me 9.5. So I'll mark down 9. So the rule is whatever you're taking out that falls on this line, you have to add it back to your waist circumference. So yeah, that's why I have 9.5 instead of 7.5. So this is the point for now. I'm going to go ahead and connect this, and I'll extend it to my top length line as well. Okay, so as you can see, I haven't really touched the upper part because that is where the main thing is, the off shoulder effect, and I'm going to be getting to that right now. So you see, this is a shoulder line. Our top is not going to be getting to this line because it's going to be an off shoulder. So in order for us to determine the drop of the off shoulder, there is average woman is usually 4 inches, but you have to now determine how wide you want yours to be, or if the person you're making for is bigger or smaller, but on the average is 4. So I'm going to be using 4 in this video. If you want it to really drop down, you can use 5 inches, especially when you are going to be having elastic band around your shoulder circumference, otherwise the top could be dropping. So I'm going to be using 4 inches. So I'm going to be coming down from my shoulder line by 4 inches. 4. I will take it on here as well so I can have a straight line, something like that. Okay, so the next thing, you know, when we are drafting a basic bodice pattern, we usually put half of our shoulder measurement on our shoulder line, right? So in this case of an off shoulder, you are going to be considering that half of your shoulder measurement, that's shoulder to shoulder measurement. The shoulder measurement I'm working with is 15 and half of it is 7.5, right? So you are going to be taking 2 inches away from that, because you can't use the whole of your half of your shoulder measurement. It's going to be too much for an off shoulder, because the place where the off shoulder neckline is going to be sitting is not as wide as your shoulder. Okay, that's the reason. It's important for you to understand the reason why we actually take this point. Like I said, the shoulder measurement I'm working with, shoulder to shoulder, is 15 inches. I have to divide that by 2, and that gives me 7.5, right? Then I took away 2 inches from that 7.5 and it gives me 5.5. So that is what I'm going to be marking on this line. I hope that explanation is clear. It's pretty simple, guys. If you don't understand, kindly rewind back and watch again the video so you listen again to what I say. It's pretty easy, so I believe you do understand. Let me know what you think down below in the comment. Alright, so now I have these 2 points that I'm going to be connecting together with a gentle curve to form my armhole curve. So at this point, the front is almost done. The next thing we are going to do is we are going to open up our paper. So then I'm going to extend every single horizontal line. So actually I have extended my top length and my waist length only, because I really don't need all these ones up here. So the next thing I'm going to be doing, you know that the crease of my paper is here, which indicates my center front. Let me just use a pencil to bring that out. I really don't need that line, but just because I want you guys to see that there is a line there, my center front line. All right, so from that center front line, I'm going to be measuring 1/4 of my waist circumference, which is what I have here, but minus these 2 inches of that, because I'm not going to be having that on this extension. So that means I'm going to be measuring 7.5 inch, which is the 1/4 of my waist circumference. In other words, just measure around your waist circumference, divide it by 4, and whatever you have, you measure it starting from this center front line towards the side. Okay, that's the point. And from that point, I'll be coming up by 2.5 inch. And this 2.5 inch is, it depends on you. You can go higher, you can go lower, depending on how you want the end of your wrap top to be, how narrow you want it to be. So this is what I have at this point, and I'm just going to connect that into a straight line here, the line going up. Okay, so I have that little line here. And the next thing I'm going to do, actually this is the point whereby you may need your bust line, which is the circumference that goes around your nipple point. So this is the point whereby you may need it, which actually is, you may not necessarily draw it out because you can just gauge it, okay, using your chest line as a reference. Usually the bust line for many people is usually just 1 inch below the chest line. So you can just consider 1 inch below this chest line as the bust point. So that means the bust line is somewhere around here. All right, but if you want to be exact, if you want to be really precise, you can go ahead and measure from your shoulder line to the bust point and then rule out a horizontal line, which you don't really need if you ask me. Okay, so this is the point, like I said, and from this point is where you are going to be determining how low you want your off shoulder to be. So this is the line that goes around your bust point. So now you determine, do you want your neckline to go below that bust point, or do you want it to be above of it? So depending on how low you want the neckline of your off shoulder top to be, you should go ahead and do that. Of course, I'm not going to recommend you coming below your bust point, because that is just going to be super exposed. But if that's what you want, of course, just go for it. So from this point, I'm going to be coming up by 0.75. That gives me that point right here. So now I have 3 points, this one, and this. I'm going to be connecting it together to give me the neckline of my off shoulder. All right, so I came up with this line, and I think I'm okay with that, and I'm just going to go ahead and use my tools to bring it out nice and smooth. So this is what we have at this point, and next thing I'm just going to add my seam allowances around it. I'll have 1/2 inch on the hemline, 1 inch on the side, 1/2 on the neckline, and 1/2 on the armhole. So now that has been done, now I'm going to cut out 2 pieces of this, and this is my front. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out. So for the back side, I have the leftover paper that I cut off from my front, and so these are the same exact line that I drew on my front panel. The shoulder line, this is the neckline line, that line that we stepped down by 4 inches. If you remember, from the shoulder line we took 4 inches and we drew this line, and then the chest line, the waistline, and my top length. All right, so the back panel is going to be pretty simple. The first thing I'm going to be doing is the dart, just like I did for the front. So I'm going to take 1/2 of my nipple to nipple measurement. The nipple to nipple measurement is 8, if you remember. Divide that by 2, I'll have 4. So I will mark 4 from, I'm using this edge as my center back, by the way. So I'll mark 4 inches on my chest line, and on my waistline I will mark the same 4 inches. I'm going to connect those 2 points into a straight line. From my chest line, I'll step down by 1/2 inch, and on my waistline I'm going to take 1/2 inch on both sides of this line, because I want a 1 inch dart. So I'm taking 1/2 inch on this side and 1/2 inch on this side. So then I have these 3 points that I'm going to connect together to form my dart, just like that. So the next thing I'm going to take now are my horizontal measurements. I will start from my chest. My chest measurement divided by 4, just like I have for the front. My chest circumference divided by 4 is going to give me 9 inches. So I'll mark 9 inches. If you want, you can add ease allowance to that. That's totally up to you. On the waistline, I will take quarter of my waist circumference. All right, quarter of my waist circumference is 7.5. That's my waist circumference divided by 4 is 7.5. And remember that we are taking in 1 inch dart, so we have to add that 1 inch back to the waistline. So I added that 1 inch. So then I'm going to connect this point to this point, and the next thing I'm going to take is the 5.5 inches that I took on my neckline, or you can call it the off shoulder line. So the 5.5 inches that I took for the front, I'll also take it on this line for the back as well. So then I am going to connect this point to this point now to form my armhole curve. So this now is the neckline. You can totally leave this neckline straight this way if you want it, but for me I'm going to be giving it a little bit of curve just because just because I want to be, y'all know me, if you've been watching my channel, you know I love to be dramatic. I love to go extra mile. Okay, so I'm going to be stepping down from here by 0.75. You can use 0.5, you can use up to 1, you can even use 2, 3, 4 inches if you want it super deep. So I'm going to be using just 0.75 in my case. So I'll mark 0.75 like so, and then I'm going to connect this point to this point to create a new back neckline. Alright, so that's the neckline I'm going to be using, and at this point the back is pretty much done, and of course I'm supposed to extend all these lines to my top length, just like that. So the next thing to do is just to add your seam allowance, and we are done with both the front and the back drafting. So then I'm simply cutting out my pattern after adding the seam allowances, and we are going to be needing 2 pieces of this, and this is my back. All right, so I went ahead and cut out my fabric using this pattern. As you can see, it's exact same shape. This is the front. I have 2 pieces of the front, and I also cut out a facing. You see, I cut out a facing for the front as well, and I have 2 pieces of the facing as well. And for the back, I cut the back out on fold. This part is on fold, so the back is 1 piece, and then I also cut out a facing for the back as well on fold. And the last and final thing I cut out is belt. As you can see, I had to join this spot, so I have 2 pieces of my belt, and they are longer than each other, okay, because one of it is going to be wrapping all around the waist, so it's going to be your waist circumference plus the extra you want to have after wrapping it around, the extra you need to tie. And then the second one is going to go around only half of your waist. So let me show you what I mean. The waist circumference I'm working with is 36. If you remember, half of 36 is 18, right? So this is 18, and I added about 24 inches extra to the 18. All right, so that's one of it. That's 18 plus 24. And this one is going to be my full waist circumference plus whatever extra I want to add. So my full waist circumference is 36. Again, 36 stops here, right? So let me show you the extra that I have. You can just have the same extra. Actually, you can have, for that I have extra of what, 24, so you can have the same amount of extra as well. And the last thing, of course, is my sleeve. So I folded in from sleeve drafting. My seam allowance was 1 inch, right? So then I folded extra 1.5 away. So with the seam allowance, I folded 2.5 inches away, so that the sleeve is a bit not up to my wrist. It should be like something like here. That's where I wanted to stop. So then I just cut out the sleeve. I opened up my pattern flat. I opened up my fabric as well, placed it on top, and cut it out. I have 2 pieces of the sleeve as well, and my sleeve already includes my seam allowance. So we are just going to get sewing. All right, so we are stitching. I'm starting from my back. I have transferred my dart. If I open up my back pattern, this is what it looks like. I have my dart here. I will transfer the second dart on here as well, and I will take that to my machine, hold my dart this way, and stitch it down. I'll repeat the same thing to the second dart that will be here. Oh yeah, before I set it aside, I'm going to be putting my neck facing. So then I'll turn it to the right side. I'll place my facing, right side of the facing to the right side of my fabric. Okay, then I will stitch it down on the neckline by 1/2 inch. Then I'll set that aside, bring in my front. So I bring in my front, and I am going to be doing something similar. When I take off my pattern, the front looks like this, and I said it's 2 pieces, right? So this is the 2 pieces, and you should transfer your dart as well. So I'll transfer my dart, and I'm going to stitch my dart first on the wrong side. I'll repeat the same thing to the second dart, stitch it on the wrong side. So then I'll bring in my facing. I'm going to be placing the facing right side to the right side of the main fabric front. Then I'll stitch it by 1/2 inch along the neckline. I'll repeat the same thing to the second front panel as well. And next I'm going to be preparing my belt. So I'm going to be folding the belt right side facing each other this way. After folding it, I'll locate the end, and I'll give the end sort of a diagonal cut, just like that. And then I will take it to my machine. I will stitch by 1/2 inch from this end all the way through the entire length. I will repeat the same thing to the second belt. So once the dart of the back has been stitched, it looks like this, and the facing as well has been stitched on it. It looks like this. For the other side of the front, the same thing. The facing has been stitched, and the dart as well has been stitched. So now I'm going to give it a notch along the facing. Okay, after notching it, you can flip it this way Okay, so that this seam allowance, you pack it onto the facing side and you give it a top stitch. So you do that and then you give it a good press along the neckline. I will repeat the same thing to the second front panel as well and the back panel as well. I will give it a notch and top stitch the excess onto the facing and also flip it here and give it a good press. Once my belt has been stitched down, I have something like this, and then it's time to turn it to the right side. You may use your turner. If you have it, you can use your hand if it's doable, or you can use the edge of your scissors. Just find a way to flip it to the right side basically. Alright, so now I am done flipping it, and then I will give it a good press so that it stops looking this wrinkled and ugly. Alright, so I'm going to repeat the same thing to the second belt as well. Alright, so I have top stitched on the facing and I have overlocked the raw edge here. I also overlocked the raw edge on the facing of the front. I'll bring it on so I can show it to you. So first I will flip it to the right side. So I'll bring my front on top of it just like that, and of course we have two fronts, right? I'll bring the second front as well on top of it, but at this point you have to decide which one you want to have. One goes in and one stays on top, so you have to decide which one goes in and which one stays on top. For me, I want this one to stay in front, so I'll put the one I want to have in front first, and this is going to be the one that goes in, so I put it last like that. All right, so now we have to stitch them together on the sides, and this is how I'm going to do it. I am going to, you see this one that has an incomplete side, I will take it out of the way, and I'm going to be joining. This has a complete side, and this is the back, and this is the front that has a complete side. I'll put them together this way, and I'm going to stitch by my seam allowance. By the way, I added a little bust that just because when I tried it on, I realized that there's a bit of something I can pinch in. So if you have this, you can also put aside that. It's optional, you may not need that in yours, so just to show you what I did. So yeah, once you're done stitching this all the way down by your seam allowance, making sure that this is out of the way, then I'll come to this side as well. I will make sure this is out of the way, this short one is out of the way, and I will be stitching the front that has the full side and the back together like this. So I'll stitch from here, I will stop here, and I will stitch a little bit, about 1 inch from my hemline upward. So I'll have an opening which is going to be just enough for my belt to go through, something like this. So I'm going to be leaving an opening at the down here, just enough for my belt to go through. You will see how we are going to be using that later. So I will go and do that. I will show you what it looks like. So once that has been done, this is what I have, and when you open it up, you have something that looks like this at this point. So I'm going to set this aside and work on my sleeve. So this is my sleeve. When I open it up, it looks like this. So I'm going to fold it back together, right sides facing each other, and I'm going to stitch by my seam allowance, and I'm going to go and hem this down part, but then you have to fold it over in a way that it creates a casing for your elastic band. So I'll fold it over once and I will stitch in a way that I have enough space to go round, and that's after stitching here. And once I'm done doing that, I will also repeat the same thing at the top of my sleeve right here as well. I'll overlock it first and fold it over once, and then I will stitch it in a way that I have a casing that fits my elastic band as well, because there's going to be elastic band at the top as well. I will do that, and I will repeat the same thing to my second sleeve too. So I have stitched it together here, see, and next I have also folded here twice. Let me show you. See, I decided to fold it twice because I'm not going to be overlocking the edges here and here. And I also folded here twice as well. So I'll take this to my machine now, this way, and I will stitch here all through to the other end. There is an opening here from this armhole that I'm going to be using to insert my elastic band. And for this one, since there are no openings on the side, I'm going to be leaving about 1 inch opening where I can pass in my elastic band. So I have done that. So I grab myself a safety pin. I'm going to be using that to fix in the elastic. By the way, this is my elastic. I cut out 9 inches long. 9 inches long for the top of my sleeve and also 9 inches long for the sleeve opening as well. So using my safety pin, I'm going to be passing the elastic band into the 2 channels. So now I have passed the elastic band and you can see it has gathered up. Here as well, I have passed the elastic band and it's gathered up. And what you should do next is to bring the 2 ends of elastic together and stitch them together. Okay, just like this. Put the 2 ends together and then you stitch it together. And for this part, you are not putting the 2 ends of the elastic together, so you can just stitch this down onto the fabric so that it doesn't go back into the channel. And the same on this side. As you can see, I have done the second sleeve as well, so they both look the same at this point. The next thing is to bring in my bodice and we are going to be attaching the sleeve on it. So as you can see, my bodice is on the wrong side and this is on the right side. I turn this to the right side and I'm going to be matching the seam line on my sleeve to my side seam, just like this. And then I'll go ahead and keep matching it all the way, and this neckline at the top here goes to this part. I will keep matching it and pinning it all around. So you see it's been pinned down. Then I'll take it to my machine this way and I will stitch it this way all through to here. Then I'm going to grab my second sleeve and I will repeat the same thing on this side as well. So once that has been done, I have something that looks like this. I have overlocked all the raw edges, as you can see, and it's all coming together. We are almost done. So the next thing I'm going to be adding is my belt. All right, so I have overlocked the hemline and I'm just going to go ahead and hem it. I'm just going to fold it over once and I will stitch. I will do that all through the entire hemline. Okay, if you don't overlock yours, then you have to fold it twice like this. Then I am going to come to this part. I'm going to fold it in. So I'll fold in my seam allowance. If you remember, I added 1 inch seam allowance on the side, so I'll fold in that 1 inch seam allowance this way. Okay, it's gonna look like this. Then I'll press it down nice and flat. I'll repeat the same thing on this side as well. So then I'm going to grab my short belt, the shortest one. This is the shortest one, and I'm going to be putting it onto this one, the one that goes inside. You know we have 2 fronts, right? One front goes in and the other one goes on top of it like this. So the one that goes inside is going to have the short belt. So I'm going to put it in this way and I will stitch it down. Then for the long belt, I will put it onto the one that goes on top of the blouse. That is after I might have rolled my hemline. And once that is done, we are done with the top and it's done. So this is how you put it on. Of course, you get into the blouse and this opening right here, this belt goes into the short belt goes into that opening and it wraps around your body and it comes here. Okay, then this one goes over it this way, then wraps around your body as well and comes here to meet this one, and then you tie.
I get lost sometimes and I can't seem to find a light between the walls I built for myself right in my mind. And then you came over and you showed me love that I never had seen before. And now when I got you, it's all gonna be alright. Thinking about all the things we did tonight, what a time to be alive.
Empty hearts and neon lights.